Imagine you're a small business owner in Hanoi, Vietnam. Let's call you Lin. For years, you've been running a modest factory, stitching together affordable jackets that end up on racks in American stores. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. Your workers earn a living, and you've carved out a niche in the global supply chain. Then, one morning, you wake up to the news. The US, your biggest market, just slapped a 46% tariff on everything you ship there. Overnight, your costs skyrocket. Your American buyers are panicking, threatening to cancel orders unless you slash prices. You're stuck. Do you eat the loss, lay off workers, or find a new market? Meanwhile, across the border in China, a massive exporter watches the chaos unfold, quietly recalculating its next move. This isn't just Lin's story, it's the story of a world on the brink of a trade revolution. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into a game changer that hit the headlines on April 3rd, 2025. US President Donald Trump announced sweeping tariffs up to 49%, targeting Asia and beyond, promising to bring back American jobs and punish unfair trade practices. He's calling it a new dawn for the US economy. But here's the twist: these tariffs might not just shake up the global trading system, they could hand China, America's biggest rival, a golden opportunity to come out on top. Let's explore how we got here, what's at stake, and why Beijing might be the one celebrating when the dust settles. So, what's the deal? Trump's plan is bold and blunt. Starting April 5th, a 10% baseline tariff hits imports from every country, no exceptions. Then, on April 9th, reciprocal tariffs kick in, tailored to match what the US claims other nations charge on American goods. China's facing 34%, Japan 24%, Vietnam 46%, Cambodia 49%, Laos 48%. The list goes on, covering 60 countries. For China, it's even worse. Stack this 34% on top of existing levies, like the 20% from the fentanyl crackdown, and some goods could hit nearly 80% in total tariffs. City analysts peg the average effective rate on Chinese imports at 65%, a level they call almost prohibitive. It's a gut punch to trade as we know it. Trump's argument is simple. He says foreign countries have been stealing our jobs and ransacking our factories for too long. He points to trade deficits. China's the biggest, followed by places like Vietnam, Japan, and India, and accuses them of slapping high tariffs on US exports, like India's 60% on American motorcycles. The new rates, he claims, will level the playing field, raise revenue, and spark a manufacturing boom in the US. It's a promise he made in the Rose Garden, vowing a golden age of America. But not everyone's buying it. Here's where it gets messy. Economists and trade experts are sounding the alarm. The Institute of Developing Economies estimates these tariffs could shave $763 billion off global GDP. In the US, inflation could spike as importers pass costs to consumers. Think higher prices for everything from Vietnamese jackets to Chinese electronics. Georg Wuttke, a trade veteran, warns it'll hit Trump's own base hardest, the lower middle class, who'll feel the pinch at the checkout. And then there's the chaos factor. Stephen Olson, a trade scholar in Singapore, says the US, the world's biggest importer, has basically hung a closed for business sign on its borders. He calls it the dismantling of the rules-based trade system we've relied on for decades. Now, let's zoom out. Who pays for this? American companies importing goods fork over the cash to a new external revenue service, Trump's latest brainchild. Last year, US Customs collected $88 billion in duties. This could dwarf that. But the real burden, it's complicated. Businesses might hike prices, fueling inflation, or squeeze suppliers like Lin in Vietnam to cut costs. Either way, the pain spreads fast. So, will this bring factories back to the US? Trump says yes, but the experts aren't so sure. Moving supply chains isn't like flipping a switch. It takes years, billions, and a stable environment. Right now, stability's out the window. Priyanka Kishore, an economist at Asia Decoded, predicts a lot of chaos as countries scramble to adjust. Some, like Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, are already booking flights to Washington to negotiate exemptions. Vietnam's sending a delegation next week. But here's the kicker: not everyone's rushing to kiss the ring. This is where China enters the picture. On paper, China's getting hammered. 34% tariffs on top of everything else could slash its exports by 15% and knock 2.4 points off its growth per city. But China's not new to this game. It's been rerouting goods through places like Vietnam to dodge US duties for years. Those high Southeast Asian tariffs might just be collateral damage from that strategy. And while the US slams the door, China's got options. Jason Miller, a supply chain expert at Michigan State, sees a shift coming. The rest of the world, think China, South Korea, Japan, could double down on trading with each other, not the US. Talks of a trilateral trade pact are already floating around. Jayant Menon, a senior fellow at ISEAS in Singapore, takes it further. He says Trump's erratic trade policy is forcing countries to de-risk, not from China, but from the US. Think about that. For years, the world's been told to decouple from China. Now, the US might be the one left out in the cold. Countries exporting coffee from Vietnam, palm oil from Indonesia, or textiles from Bangladesh, billions in trade, might pivot to China's massive market instead. China's already a powerhouse in Asia's supply chains. This could cement its dominance. And what about retaliation? If nations hit back and China's already vowing countermeasures, Trump's promised escalation, Olson warns we could spiral into a trade war that makes the 1930s look tame. But if others cut deals instead, it's still a win for China. Why? Because every concession weakens the old system of fair rules-based trade, replacing it with a pay-to-play game, one China's long mastered through its own economic leverage. Let's circle back to Lin in Hanoi. She's not just a victim, she's a sign of what's coming. If her factory can't sell to the US, she'll look elsewhere. China's right next door with deep pockets and a hunger for influence. Multiply that by thousands of businesses across Asia, and you see the shift. A world less tethered to America, more anchored to Beijing. So, what's the takeaway? Trump's tariffs might spark short-term chaos, higher prices, shuttered factories, a hit to global growth, but in the long run, they could accelerate a reordering of globalization. The US wants to reclaim its industrial crown, but it risks isolating itself instead. China, battered but resilient, could pick up the pieces, turning trade lemons into geopolitical lemonade. As Menon puts it, in a strategic sense, China is a beneficiary of this bizarre trade policy. Time will tell, but one thing's clear: the world Lin and all of us knew is changing fast. Thanks for joining me today. What do you think? Will China seize this moment, or will Trump's gamble pay off? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time.